There is a machine on your counter, plastic body, a clock on the front that blinks because you have never set it. It wants a paper filter you have to buy, and a carafe with a hairline crack running up from the bottom, and a wall plug. In about 3 years, the heating element will quit. You will haul it to the dump and buy another one exactly like it. There is a pot hanging in my kitchen that is black on the outside and black on the inside. No filter, no basket, no cord, no clock. It was old when I was young. It has never been plugged into anything, and it makes better coffee than the machine on your counter does. You are already thinking there is a trick to it, something they put in, an eggshell, a pinch of salt, some secret the old outfits carried and never wrote down. There is not. Here's the part nobody tells you, friend. Cowboy coffee is not difficult. It is easy, and nearly every man alive ruins it by doing the one thing he is absolutely certain he is supposed to do. He boils it. That is the whole failure. He gets the water rolling hard, dumps his grounds down into it, and lets the business churn like a stock pot, because that is what he has seen done in every movie and at every campfire he ever stood at. That is what makes coffee taste like tar, not the fire, not the lack of a filter, the boil. And I will say something about the old boys that most would not. They did it too. I have watched men who could shoe a horse and read a brand at 400 yards, stand over a pot and cook the life out of it, then say trail coffee was just naturally rough. It was not naturally anything. It was rough because they boiled it. The fix is one motion of your wrist, and I will show you exactly where that motion goes. But ask yourself this first. If the power went out tonight and stayed out a week, could you make a good cup of coffee in the morning? Not get by, make it good. Your granddaddy could do it half asleep in the dark. Nobody ever handed that down to you. My name's Wade Coulter. I am 64 years old, and I ranch in the rolling plains of West Texas. I came up on coffee made in a pot over a fire before I came up on much of anything else. The man who ran the chuck wagon was called the koozie, and the koozie had coffee going at 4 in the morning in the dark before one hand had his boots on. That pot ran all day. That is the coffee I learned on, and it is the only kind I have ever really wanted. 2 things to hold on to. The first is that mistake. I have told you what it is. I have not told you the exact second to stop, and that second is the whole game. The other I am keeping until the end. There is a way to clear a whole pot of loose grounds in about 10 seconds, with no filter and no strainer and no cloth. It is cold water. That is the entire trick, and I will show you why it works before we are through. Why does no man under 60 know any of this? Because it was sold out from under you. They sold your father a machine. Then they sold him the filters to feed the machine. Then they sold his son a plastic pod with a foil lid on it. 3 generations taught that coffee requires electricity. That is not on you, friend. Nobody showed you because there was no money in showing you. There is money in the machine. Start with the grind because most pots are lost here before the water is ever hot. Coarse, not fine. You want it looking like coarse sand or cracked pepper, and you ought to be able to see the individual pieces without leaning in. Fine grounds are powder, and powder does 2 things to you. It never settles, so it hangs suspended and you drink grit all the way down the cup, and it gives up too much too fast, which is bitterness. Coarse grounds sink. That is the property this entire method rests on. Everything I am about to show you works because coarse grounds want to go to the bottom, and your job is mostly to get out of their way. If you grind your own, set it coarse, what a burr grinder calls a percolator or a press setting. If you buy it ground, look for those same words on the bag. Do not use the fine stuff sitting in the can from the drip machine. It will fight you. The old outfits bought whole roasted beans in paper sacks, and a good many wagons carried a grinder bolted right to the side of them. Cracked fresh in the dark, coarse as gravel. Now the water. This is the part I promised you. Bring it to a full rolling boil, all the way. You want it boiling for a reason. It settles the question of whether your water is clean, and it puts you at a known temperature. Then take it off the fire. That is the motion, off the heat. Set the pot on a rock or the edge of the wagon or your kitchen counter and let it stand about 30 seconds to a minute. It is still enormously hot. It is simply no longer boiling. Then you add your grounds. Never the other way around. Never grounds into a boil. Never back onto the flame once the coffee is in there. Here is the mechanism, because once a man knows the why, he never has to remember the rule. Hot water pulls flavor out of ground coffee in an order. The good comes out first, the sweetness, the body, the oil. The bitter comes out last, and it comes out faster the hotter the water is. Boiling water pulls all of it at once and hands you the bitter right along with the good. Water a touch under boiling takes the good and leaves most of the bitter behind in the ground where it belongs. 2 rounded tablespoons of coarse grounds for every cup of water. A 2-quart pot takes about a cup of grounds. Measure it once, look at it hard, and after that your hand knows it. One note on where this stops working. I speak from West Texas, and we are not high country. If you are up at 7,000 or 8,000 feet, your water boils cooler to start with, so shorten that rest. 15 or 20 seconds is plenty before the grounds go in. Now it sits, and how long it sits matters more than most men think. 4 minutes. Off the fire the whole time. The grounds will raft up on top in a dark crust. That is correct. That is what they are supposed to do. Give them one gentle push under with a spoon and then leave them alone. Do not stir it. Do not beat it to mud. Every time you stir a pot of coffee, you are breaking coarse grounds into fine ones, and we have already covered what fine grounds cost you. 4 minutes is not a guess. Under 3, and it comes out weak and sour. Past 5, and the bitter starts arriving whether the water is boiling or not. Time it the first few mornings. If the pot cools too much for your liking, set it near the coals. Near, not on them. The second that coffee returns to a boil, everything you just did carefully is undone. And at the end of those 4 minutes, you have a pot of good coffee with a 1/4 inch of loose grounds floating on it and more suspended all through it, which is the exact moment every man reaches for the eggshell. Let us deal with that honestly, because it is the most famous thing about cowboy coffee, and it is oversold. The eggshell trick is real. Crushed shell is calcium carbonate, which is alkaline, and coffee is acid. It does take an edge off. It also gives the fine particles something to gather on, so grounds clump and drop instead of drifting. America's Test Kitchen tested it and acknowledged both effects. So it works. It is simply not necessary. If your coffee is bitter, an eggshell is a bandage on a wound you gave yourself with the fire. Fix the heat, and you will not want the shell. A pinch of salt does the same softening in a pinch, because salt puts bitterness down on the tongue better than sugar ever has. Which leaves the grounds, and that, friend, is the one I have been saving. Take a 1/4 cup of cold water, just cold water, out of the canteen or out of the tap. Sprinkle it across the top of the pot, across the whole surface, not down in one spot. Then count to 10. The grounds go down. Not most of them, effectively all of them, in 10 or 15 seconds, and you will stand there and watch it happen. The crust on top breaks and sinks. The coffee clears from the top downward, and you are left with black coffee above and a bed of grounds packed on the bottom. No filter, no strainer, no cloth, no press. Here is why. Cold water is denser than hot water. That is why a lake stratifies and why the bottom of a stock tank stays cold in August. Sprinkle cold water onto a hot pot and it does not mix, it falls. It falls through the whole column, and on the way down, it carries the grounds with it. It also drops the temperature right at the surface, which stops the extraction where it stands, so the coffee is not still getting stronger and more bitter in the pot while you drink it. That is the whole of it. That is what 100 years of men on this ground used instead of paper. Then pour, and pour like a man who means to keep what he just made. Slow. Hold the pot low to the cup and tip it gradually. A fast pour sets up a current in the bottom of the pot and stirs your grounds right back up into suspension. And leave the last inch. There is an inch of sludge in the bottom of that pot, and it belongs to the fire, not to you. A man who drained his cup to the last drop got exactly what he had coming. One word on handling. The bail on a pot that has set over a fire is as hot as the pot is. Use a heat-safe glove or a folded wild rag and use a thick one. I have burned my hand more than once being in a hurry at 4 in the morning, and I have nothing to show for it but the mark. So, coarse grounds, never fine. Water to a hard boil. Off the fire. 30 seconds. Grounds in. 4 minutes standing. No stirring, no flame. A quarter cup of cold water across the top. Count 10. Pour slow, pour low, leave the last inch. 9 steps. Not one of them cost $1. No filter, no grinder if you buy it coarse, no machine, no pod, no cord, no clock, no light that comes on. Better coffee than the plastic box on your counter makes, and nothing in it that can break. Do not go changing your life over this. Do one thing. Saturday morning, make a single pot this way. Coarse grounds, boil and pull, 4 minutes, cold water on top. 1 pot. That is Saturday. And when the machine on your counter quits in 3 years, and it will quit, you will not be obliged to replace it. The pot in my kitchen was old when I was young, and it will outlast me as well. Those men did not have better equipment than you have. They had the order of operations, a pot, a fire, and the knowledge of when to take it off. Tell me down in the comments how your father or your grandfather took his coffee and what the pot looked like. Enamel, tin, blue speckled, black as a stove lid. I read every one of them, and the story that gets talked about most down there is the one I build the next video around. There was a thing the koozie kept in a crock under the wagon, and he guarded it closer than the strongbox. If it froze, the outfit ate badly for a week. If it got too hot, the same. Men have kept the same one alive for 50 years and handed it down, and I will show you how it was done. Ride for the brand.